Hi everybody, welcome to Riverdale Public Library. It's Thursday crafts time. I'm Ms. Helen, and today we are going to make an animal that has something to do with the theme of our summer reading program. And the theme of our summer reading program is Tales and Tales. Tales as in an animal, part of the animal's body, and tales as in a story. And I decided that for today's craft, we should do an animal with a beautiful, magnificent tail, very colorful tail that spreads out like a fan. Yes, you can guess, a peacock. And I'm going to call our project the Ocean Peacock because we are going to use a shell as the tail. Now, before we get started, I just want to remind you that you can go into our library website to sign up for the summer reading program. It starts on June 29th, next week. And we would love to see you back at the library looking for books. And if you come in, you'll see in the children's room there is a bulletin board with a large peacock, but it only has a few of its feathers. And below that, you'll see copies of single peacock feathers, and it would be great if you take one, cut it out, use the crayons there to color it, and then we will add it to the peacock on our bulletin board. So we hope to see you in the library to pick up books, and if you're there, you can leave it with me, Miss Geneva, and if we're not there, just leave it on our desk, and we will put the feather up. We will add it to the peacock tail. So let's get started. The materials you're going to need, and they should be in your kits, are a shell like this, some polymer clay. I made a mix of clay using peacock-like colors, blues, greens, grays. Some of you are going to make a pink peacock. They're not pink, but it kind of looks cool. So, who says your animal can't be made up? And so, for example, here's some pink polymer, and we've got some peach for the head, and for the head here that I'm going to use, I've got some gray. You also have some googly eyes, and a feather for the crest, and a pipe cleaner, which we're going to cut in half. So you'll need scissors, and we're going to use those for the wings. The other thing you will need is paint because we're going to paint the shell to look like a peacock tail, and brushes. So let's get started. We're going to start with the polymer clay, the peacock's body, and squish it all together, make a kind of an oval shape. Okay. And then I'm going to take my rounded piece of clay, and I'm going to press my thumb down one side. Here, move this down so you can see how I do this. Press it down one side. So that one end is a little bit lower than the others, and you've got kind of a scoop in the middle, almost in the middle, not quite in the middle. And then pull it out a little bit, so now you're going to see a shape like this. And push up the other end, the part that's not scooped out. So you're going to wind up here, see it sideways, with this shape. So this side, we're looking at it straight on. You can see the little groove inside. This is going to be the front of the peacock. I'm going to make it a little taller and a little wider than the back of the peacock. And the back of the peacock, pinch it a little bit so that it is narrower at this end. So here's the shape we have. And this is how it looks from the front. This is how it looks from the back. Okay. And then we're going to put it aside because now we are going to paint the peacock tail using a shell. And what I did to start out was I chose one color that I thought would go well with this peacock. I chose kind of a shiny blue-green, and I painted this shell, and then I let it dry. So that's the next thing you're going to do. You take your shell, pick a background color, paint it, and let it dry. So once you paint it, stop the video and then press play again when you're ready to move on. So since mine is dry already, what I'm going to do is take my brushes. I've got a narrow brush here, and I've got a flat brush here. Either way they work for making details on your shell. Okay, so I used the flat brush to paint this. And now, after washing it off, or if I'm using a similar color, I might not have to. Now I'm going to draw in the grooves of the shell. I'm going to draw some lines. And I'm also going to make a trim around the top of the shell. So I think I will choose a dark blue for that. And this part you want to go very slowly on. Now if you mess up, you can just paint the shell over again, let it dry. But the more slowly you work on making the details of your peacock tail, the less likely you are to mess up. So I'm going to take this flat brush and just dip the end in. Just the very end. So there's blue paint only at the tip. Okay. And I'm going to make kind of a feathery effect at the top. I just making little narrow blue lines at the top. And now it kind of has a wispy, feathery look at the very top of the peacock tail. Okay. Then what I'm going to do, I'll pick a different color now. I'm going to pick let's see, a dark green. And I'm going to, actually, I'll pick something a little with more contrast here, which I think, let's try a light green. And I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to just use the very tip here, and now I'm going to draw in the grooves of the shell. I'm going to start from the top and top middle and make my way downward. And this time it's going to be a little thicker. so that I'm painting in between grooves of the shell. And I'm not going to go all the way to the bottom because the grooves get really narrow as you go. Just going to go about 3/4 of the way down. One more on each end. And there we have it. There we have. Now because we had the background color, now we have a striped look. And at this point also, I'm going to go back to my dark blue. And just make some pattern across here. Some color there all the way to the side. And now I'm going to, you know how the top of a peacock tail has little colorful circles. So I'm going to take a small brush now and I am going to use purple to make some of those circles. Okay, and after you've made your purple or whatever color you choose, your circles, let that dry, because once, for example, once the purple dries here, you will add another color to it. Remember, if you're painting on top of something, always give the part that's under time to dry. Otherwise, colors will run into each other. Okay, and I'm going to take some purple also and fill in the bottom of the shell. And you can also paint the back of the shell if you want. I'm not going to do that here, but you can do that. Okay. At this point, I'm going to let everything dry. I do want to put another color on top of those dots here, but we need time to let that dry first. So while that is drying, we can work on the head of the peacock. Okay, so you're going to take your smaller piece of polymer, okay, and make it round. Now you're going to take your bigger piece and you're going to stick it on top of the wide end. Now, in real life, a peacock has a long neck, so you could take it and make a long neck out of it, but for our practical purposes, we're going to make a short-necked peacock. And so it's just sitting right up there, and push it in long enough to now you have two choices here. You could leave your peacock body as is and then add the rest to it, or you could bake it. Okay, bake it in a regular oven, not a microwave oven. This would probably take about 20 minutes to half an hour to bake at about 275 degrees Fahrenheit. And then the peacock's body would be hard. But before we do that though, if you're going to bake the peacock body, you need to make holes for where the feather will go and where the feathers will go and where the eyes will go. So, not feathers, the wings. So I'm going to take my pipe cleaner and I'm going to cut it in half. Bend it over to see where the halfway mark is. Cut. Okay. Then I'm going to curl it up a little bit. And like that, and I'm going to bend it at one end, at the other end like this. Okay, so it's basically going to look kind of like that. And then I'm going to take that short end and I'm going to push it into the side of the peacock's body like this. And pinch it upward. So now feather is in the peacock. The wing is in the peacock, like so. And then you're going to do the other end, same thing. Bend it one end just a little bit like this. Push it into the other side of the peacock. And there you have it. Okay. Now, if you're going to leave it as it is, you're pretty much set with the wings. But if you're going to bake it now, you're going to take the wings out. And then after it bakes, you're going to stick a little glue in the hole that it made and then put the wings back in. Okay. So right now, I'm not baking it right now, so I'm going to leave the wings in. And now I'm going to go for the eyes. And it's the same thing. If you're not going to bake it, you just stick the eyes in and leave them there. If you're going to bake it, you would just glue them on later. Eye on one side. You got one eye. You got the other eye. And if you push a little bit, the clay will hold it. Okay, so now we've got its eyes. And you can even add take a little piece of clay or a little piece of paper and make a beak. Just taking a bit of clay for that. If you make it kind of a triangular shape, sharpen it at the end, then you're good to go. Now it's got a beak. And the last thing we're going to do before putting the tail on, actually before finishing up the tail and putting it on, is we're going to stick a feather on our peacock's head, right down the middle. So now we have our peacock, and our peacock has everything except its tail. So let's put our peacock aside. This might be the time, if you're going to bake the clay, to take off the wings, take off the eyes. You could leave the beak on if it's also made of clay. But if it's made of anything else, paper or anything else, take it off and glue it back on later. And take out the feather. But now you've got the holes there, and those holes will bake too. So then you will be able to stick it back in and hold it with some glue. But anyway, I'm going to put our peacock aside. And now the glue should be dry on the dots I made here. And I'm going to pick one more color to put inside those dots, and I'm going to go with some, let's see, some blue, green right in the middle. It's not showing up so well. I'm going to pick a lighter color because the purple is dark and the green is too dark. So let's take a light blue, and now I'm putting some on a skinny brush and just dabbing a tiny bit right there, tiny bit right there, there, there. And I'm even going to put a little bit down here just for fun. Very bottom of the tail. I'm going to add in a tiny, since we have those light green stripes there, now I'm going to take some dark blue and put a little bit of blue there in the middle, tiny little bit. See, the green is still wet here, so it's blending in, but I'm just going to add a little blue there. A little bit of blue mixed in with that green. And I think our tail looks pretty good. So here's our peacock tail. But I still need to let this dry before I actually put it on the peacock. So what I did was I made another tail, different, a little bit smaller, some time ago. And the paint is dry on this one, so I'm going to use this tail for a different peacock and take this one that is already dry, and now I'm going to take our peacock again and again, if you're baking, you want to make a groove with the shell, then remove the shell, then bake, and then glue it back in. I'm not baking this, so I'm just taking the tail, you can see the back part, and I am placing it, I'm going to squish that bottom part right into the back, close to the back of the peacock. And there it is. And so here we have our lovely painted ocean peacock. Got its wings, beak, eyes, tail, and have fun finishing your peacock. And don't forget to sign up for our summer reading and add your peacock feather to the tail on our bulletin board in the children's room. And I'll see you next time. Have fun finishing your project. Bye.